Hey there. Today I wanted to share some ways that you can wrap up a unit or review throughout a unit, or especially at the end, that are just some maybe different ways to keep your kids engaged and things that have worked really well in my room. So we're going to kind of go through some different activities. Sorry I couldn't be here in person for Lunch and Learn today, but hopefully this works just as well. In general, these are a lot of ways to kind of keep kids actively engaged. Some of them involve getting up and moving or thinking in ways that they don't usually do. And so we are going to go through four total. These are ones that I have used in my classroom a few times, some more than others, just because. I don't know, some of them I like more than others. They're still really great no matter what you can do. And I think these can work for any content area. At least one of these strategies for sure can work with any content area. So hopefully you get an idea, something to add to maybe your I don't know, back pocket as far as an activity to try. So the first one is a question trail. We're also going to go over silent discussions quickly, pop-up discussions, and then hexagonal thinking. So to start, we're looking at question trails. And our question trails are like an active way to get kids up and out of their desks, to have them go around and kind of like review. There's lots of things you can click on this, but basically the goal is there's a template. I did not think of this on my own because it kind of broke my brain initially to figure out how does this work and how do you do this? Because the goal is you go through an entire, like, the kids will never repeat a question. They have a single path of right answers. And if they repeat a question, it means they got something wrong and need to backtrack to figure out which one they got wrong. And so I'm like, well, how do you do that? Thank goodness people are amazing and I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. So I borrowed a template, which I'm sharing on this presentation. You can click where it says this template there. And it has it all set up for you. So all you have to do is go plug in your question, and it even tells you this is where your right answer goes and then the wrong answers. So you set those up. Print them, you put them, around the room, or I put them in the hallway. You can see a student in the picture there. She's answering one of the questions there. And they have to go through and answer those questions. Once they get an answer that they think is correct, then they move on to that next one. It'll tell them go to number 5, and so they'll go to number 5 and they'll keep answering. Again, if they visit a spot that they've already been, they've done something wrong and have to backtrack. I did leave an example as well. I did this for Lit Lab, and I do it a few times for Lit Lab just because we do a lot more like reviewing vocabulary concepts or like parts of speech things. And so those are ones that are really easy for my kids to like review really quick. And I can also see which ones are struggling a little bit more. So question trails are super cool, super nice. I really enjoy doing those. There's 13 questions total. But yeah, so we can play around with those templates overall. The next thing that we're looking at here are silent discussions. This one, I know that those are like, it's kind of like a contradictory title there, since, you want to be discussing, but it's silent. I really enjoy these because I am one of those, like, I don't know, I feel like English has a lot of same kids like to speak up and share their ideas about the things we're reading, and some kids will never share. And it's maybe they don't want to share in a large group or are too shy or what have you. So this is a really easy way to get that engagement on a different level. And so what I do is I print out, however many questions I need. Sometimes I push our desks together and make 6 groups, groups of 6, and then I print 6 different discussion questions. And each kid starts with their own question. And so, for example, the question that's posted in that picture is about like reviewing the poem that we read before we read the play that it's based out of. So it says like review Langston Hughes' poem. In what ways does this like illustrate the themes of the play we just read? So then kids had a chance to kind of like draw and like annotate, put their answers. Down at the bottom of this slide, it does link you to like my example slide of what I tell my kids when we do this, because they get like 4 minutes per question. I kind of up the time as those things go around, just because they start having more to read. It's not just the question, it's their question plus 3 other classmates and what they've written and answered. So I ask them to push them to use evidence, to respond, agree and disagree, but explain why, add an example from the text. Like, there's different ways that they can interact. So they should never just be like, I agree, and then sit there for 5 minutes. But you can see that I joined and I was in blue. They had a small group, so I was writing with them. But I kind of just jumped around, or they jumped around and circled things or pointed arrows at other people's responses, and we're just kind of talking through those. So it was really cool to see everyone's ideas come together in a way that doesn't usually happen sometimes in a large group where we've got those really quiet kids that don't want to speak out loud at all. So silent discussions, super fun, super cool. Just different. If there's any questions that too, I sometimes take those questions that I really enjoyed, and we bring them up on the large group, and then we talk about them together. And so some of them we do end up as a collective whole, when we come back together, we'll talk about, but for the most part, it's just we're rotating and we're exploring those questions. We're seeing what other people have said, responding to things like that. Pop-ups discussions are the ones I probably have done the least. They are really nice. When we're reading a novel, I give them a tough question, can't even think of one. Okay, so here's an example. You could do I'm blanking. Never mind. Maybe you can't. I don't know. I don't remember what question I know what it is. When we read Gatsby, I did this. And I put the question, who deserves Daisy more, Gatsby or Tom? And they have a discussion about it, and the rules are there. So they had to pop up. The goal is you're not speaking super lengthy, you're not getting into groups, you're not it's just super fast. It's meant to be quick. Your goal is to speak at least once, and it's really easy to mark because if they speak, I can just check them off to make sure that they're getting some speaking practice. They get to put their stance out there. They have a new argument, new example, new explanation. They can build off of one another, but it's just a really fast version of a debate/question discussion kind of thing. But that one's a fun one because the Daisy, Gatsby, Tom discussion is always interesting to hear from. So that one's a really fun one if you're looking for just a quick way to get your kids talking instead of your traditional discuss with your table group, or what do you think? And not everyone speaks. So this is just a way to get everybody speaking instead. Additionally, hexagonal thinking. This is one that I stole from Jacqueline Vanderwall. So thank you, Jacqueline. There's lots of ways to do this. There's other ways that people have done hexagonal thinking. Sometimes there's a center with actual edges that are different than what's in the middle, and people can fill out maybe it's a character and then it's got different qualities or characteristics on the outside. I actually really liked this one that she shared with me because this one's just they get one topic, one issue, one theme, one word that has to do with something we're looking at in class. And their goal is to make connections between all those ideas. So every hexagon has to meet somewhere else around the others. So what they did, for example, is we were reading creation stories in senior level English. And so they had to take their little sections. So I put things like the stories and the characteristics we had talked about that define a creation story, and they had to connect them all. And anytime one connects another one, they have to be able to explain how that thing connects. So if you're looking at the picture right now, for example, they needed to be able to explain how humans matched with chaos. What is the connection they're making there? What's cool about this one is there's no really right or wrong answer. Their hexagon maps looked very different when they were done. No two groups had the same looking table by the end of it. And then I also had them explain. So look at your connections. I come around once they're done, they have to explain them all to me verbally, and then I have them write a couple out more in depth and explore those ones more in depth. There is a template there that's the one I used from Jacqueline, and I also have my example from the ones there linked as well. So those are really good options too that you can do. I mean, I can imagine doing lots of things with those, especially in in a history course or an English course. I could even see it probably work for science somehow, but I am not well versed in science or math, so my ideas are a little bit less formed for those. But yeah, so those are 4 quick activities to do. Lots of things linked within here. So if there's anything that you want to look at more, obviously go into those. You can make copies. Please do that if you have questions or if you're like wondering how this looks or want to go through a more depth one in particular and give you some more examples or help you develop any of these. I'd love to help you do that. I think that what you could do now would be really, my plan if I was in person was to kind of brainstorm with you on what activity could you take from this presentation and use either this unit sometime in your wrapping up of the school year or thinking next year. I know that that's like sometimes not the best thing to do already, is to be like, what could you plan on doing next year? But maybe you want to think about, where could this fit in with all the things I do, and just get it created, made, thrown in a folder so that when you go to it next year, you could be like, oh yeah, I wanted to try doing that question trail, or I wanted to try doing a silent discussion, things like that. So yeah, as always, if you have any questions, you let me know. You know where to find me. And I hope that you learned something today. So thank you for joining.